Welcome to Left, Right, Center, where we are covering Colorado politics first on CBS News Colorado. I'm political specialist Shaun Boyd. We continue to highlight Denver mayoral candidates this week with a look at the only Republican in the race, Andy Rougeot. Andy graduated from Harvard Business School and served in the U.S. Army in Afghanistan. He owns a small business in Denver that employs 30 people and is married with 2 daughters. Andy, welcome to
Thank you for having me.
Center. Yeah, I want to start with a new poll. It found that most Denverites, 57% of those surveyed, support the sweeps of homeless encampments. 34% oppose them. You're with the supporters. Clearly, these sweeps have not worked. What else do you do?
So as mayor, I will enforce the camping ban to get the homeless into the mental health and drug addiction services they need. And our current mayor hasn't done that. Our current mayor has failed our city. Our current mayor has decided when it's politically expedient to occasionally sweep. What we actually need to do is consistently enforce our camping ban to get people to use those services like are offered by Step Denver, Stout Street, Denver Rescue Mission, because that's the only thing we can do as a city.
You support involuntary treatment. Certainly in some cases, you've said. How far do you take that? Does everybody with a drug addiction, everybody with a mental health issue get put in treatment, get forced into treatment?
So when I see someone sitting on the street dealing with a mental health issue or drug addiction issue, I think the compassionate thing to do is get that person help. The compassionate thing to do is not to step over that person. So if you talk to people who've been through these services, talk to people who have, for example, woken up on a street corner and had their daughter call them and say, I don't want to talk to you ever again, Dad, until you get clean. You know the impact that has on their life. So we have to make sure that we are giving those people the chance to get clean and that we are allowing them to have a chance to reconnect to the family. So that's why Denver deserves a mayor who will fight for our future by enforcing our camping ban and also by adding 400 police officers to make sure our streets are safer.
Let's talk about the safe outdoor spaces that Denver has. Would you continue those? Would you change them in any way? So
I think that policy has failed. We have not seen a housing first policy work in our city. What we need to do is a treatment first policy. We're helping someone who's dealing with those mental health or drug addiction issues get into the help they need. So it's something where I would not support that, and I will make sure that we're instead getting people into services.
There's a lack of affordable housing in Denver, but since enacting the inclusionary zoning policy, where the new housing includes a certain number of affordable units, the permit applications for multifamily dwellings is down. Would you discontinue that policy?
Yeah, so I don't think that policy is working. Right now, if you're a blue-collar worker, young family, if you're a first-time home buyer, it's difficult to afford a home in our city. I talked to a waitress who was commuting from 45 minutes out of town every day. Meant she couldn't drop her kids off at school. Meant she was spending an hour and a half in traffic. And the reason why we're not building enough housing in our city is because we have regulations that are increasing the cost of building. We have too much money in the zoning decision process. We have a permitting department that's broken. That's why, as mayor, I will fight for our future by fixing that broken permitting department, by getting rid of regulations that are increasing the cost of building housing in our city, by getting money out of the process.
You know, the same poll on homelessness also asked about crime in the city. 50% want more police. 39%, so they're almost divided on this, say the money would be better spent on social welfare programs. What social welfare programs, if any, would you spend more money on? Do you think the city should maybe expand?
Yeah, so as mayor, I will add 400 police officers. That is a solution to rising crime. When my immediate next door neighbor on Christmas Eve had 4 people jump their fence and try to pry open their back door, and they had to sit on hold with 911 on Christmas Eve in fear of their lives, that is a memory that will stick with that family the rest of their life. That's a memory that I don't want my daughters to have. The solution to that is more police, not less police. And the other candidates who are running for mayor who think the answer is decreasing funding for the police are simply wrong. That's why, as mayor, I'll fight for our future by adding 400 police officers, not by reducing funding for our police department.
But are there social welfare programs that you would like to expand too?
I think the focus should be, again, on making our city safe, which is by increasing the number of officers. It's also by increasing funding for our police training. Because if we have police that have that additional training, for example, in de-escalatory procedures, they'll be better policing.
You've talked about bringing on 400 more officers. There aren't enough graduating from the police academy. There's so few. Aurora is actually going out of state in recruiting officers to bring here. So how would you attract 400 more police officers?
Yeah, so attracting 400 more police officers is critical. And when I talk to former officers, even former chiefs, they tell me the issue is not a pay issue. It's not a wage rate issue. It's an issue of support. They think our current mayor does not have their back. They think they can't do their job. If we had a mayor who had supported our police, who would let our police officers actually do what they want to do, which is help and protect our community, we wouldn't have an issue on staffing. When I talk to former officers who have quit the force and worked to be firefighters or paramedics in the city because they know that's where they can help, those are people who, if we actually allowed our officers, for example, to pursue nonviolent crimes who are fleeing from a site of a crime, we will be able to keep those officers and actually increase our staffing.
I want to switch gears and talk about climate change here. Name 3 changes that you would make to get Denver to its stated goal of 65% renewable energy by 2030, and how would you fund them?
Yes. So meeting that climate goal is critically important. The way we do that is actually by becoming a clean innovation hub in our city. So right now, to hit that 65% goal, we won't do it with the policies of our current mayor. We won't do it with the policies that are being proposed by other candidates. We only do that by having an energy revolution, which is driven by technological innovation. It's not driven by top-down government changes. So we need to be a city that's encouraging small businesses to start here. We need to be a business that's a hub for talent. We do that by being a safer city, a city where people feel safe walking to their car after work. We do that by being a city where people can build businesses. That's why, as mayor, I'll add those 400 police officers. I'll also get rid of regulations that make it difficult to build businesses in our city.
Some mayors oversee their school districts. Should the Denver mayor seek that authority?
So our public school system here is broken. Something where, for example, we're excluding police officers from our schools. We're seeing horrific crimes, including a recent shooting near East High School. We've seen over 250 weapons confiscated from schools in the past year. We need to reintroduce police officers back into our schools. I want my daughters to be safe when they go to school.
Will you send them to Denver Public Schools?
I will. And I want them to be safe when they go there. I don't want them to be in a situation where they're worried about a weapon being in the school. That's why we need to have police officers reintroduced, and it's something I'll do as mayor.
I wonder, if you don't win this election, will you continue to live in Denver?
So I'm going to win the election, so it's an easy answer. But yes, this is the city where I put down roots. After I got out of the Army, I could have lived anywhere. But I love this city. I think it's the greatest city in the country. It's a city where I'm raising a family. I built a business. So I love this place, and I'll never let it go.
So should you win, would you consider any of your opponents for a cabinet position?
As mayor, I will make sure I have a diverse and competent cabinet. I'm going to pull from everywhere, including business leaders, political leaders. However, what I won't do is I won't take people who want the status quo. I think too many of the people who are running want more of the same, or they want more of the same but more money behind it. So I will make sure I have a cabinet that's dedicated and focused to adding those 400 police officers, to enforcing our camping ban, and getting more housing built. And I don't think the status quo and the current politicians are doing it.
You know, Denver has been adding bike lanes, as you know, over the years. Do you think they should continue that? Do you think any of them should be eliminated? So
bike safety and pedestrian safety is a critical issue in our city. We had a horrific accident on 38th and Sheridan, which is close to my home, where a bicyclist was hit by a driver running through a red light. The issue there is we're not enforcing our laws. That was 2 cars who ran through a red light and hit someone. There was not a bike lane, there was not a speed limit change that would kept that person safe. What kept that person safe was having a police officer who was arresting people when they're running through red lights. We live in the Highlands in the north side. When we're pushing our strollers with our daughters, we'll have people who gun it through alleyways, just alleyway after alleyway after alleyway. My wife has nearly been hit multiple times. That's why we need to add those 400 police officers so we're actually safe in our streets. And we can't be talking about, like other candidates are, on decriminalizing, for example, speeding and running red lights, because those are what keep us safe, including our pedestrians and our bicyclists.
So you're not talking about getting rid of bike lanes?
No, I'm talking about actually enforcing our laws,
right,
including on speeding and red lights, which is the way we actually protect our pedestrians in the city.
So Denver is adding new park space near the airport. Complaints are common that the city doesn't do enough to take care of the park space it has. Should it add more park space?
So yes, we should have more park space, and we also need to take care of our park space. When we bought our house, we didn't have the girls yet, but we've got a beautiful little postage stamp park right behind our house. And I love going out there with my 3-year-old in my arms. She loves the swings. As soon as we go out that door, her smile lights up. But I'll step out that back door, and I'll see a man with his pants around his ankles using his restroom. And people will tell me the compassionate thing to do is let that person do that. The compassionate thing to do is to see someone who's experiencing a severe drug addiction issue and is homeless, and to let them do that. And that's why we need to enforce our camping ban to make sure those people get into the services they need, instead of having it be an issue for our city.
All right. We're out of time.
Well, thank you for having me. I'd love to do this again.
Thank you for coming on our show.
Thank you for letting me talk about how I'm going to fight for our future. I appreciate it.
And we will be right back with our analysts, Dick Wadhams and Mike Dino. Welcome back to Left, Right, Center. I'm political specialist Shaun Boyd with our analysts, Democrat Mike Dino, Republican Dick Wadhams. You heard my interview with Andy Rougeot. Thoughts, surprises, Dick?
Well, I think Andy really separated himself from the crowd, Shaun. I mean, I hear other candidates talk about how they do support police, but I tell you, it's almost like they're embarrassed to say it, and they're kind of afraid to say it because of the leftward drift of Denver. I think he was direct, unequivocal, and you get a good sense about where he would want to go. I think he's separating himself.
What stands out to you, Mike?
Well, no doubt his sincerity, and certainly he has wonderful intentions for our community and for our city. The challenge, of course, is the dynamics of the campaign. Denver voters do pay attention to kind of your political background, and Republicans have had a heck of a time in this town for many years. Also, it doesn't help that the dynamic of the elections change. It's been moved up a month. People are just getting over the hangover from 2022.
Right. And
there's a lot of candidates in the race. And so to break out on the same issues that everybody else is running on is really hard. Certainly, he has some funding that he's putting in himself that'll help him get some attention on TV, and the other candidates are doing the same.
Do you think we've talked about how Denver has moved further to the left over the last few years. Can a Republican win in Denver?
I think so, Shaun, and I'll tell you why. Because I think people are more concerned about crime and homelessness and all these issues than they ever have before. And I got to tell you, I hear it from people I know in Denver that that they just think it's out of control. And I look at these other candidates, many of whom are good people, many of whom are friends of mine and who I like. But will they really take the bull by the horns, so to speak, and really do the things that have to be done in Denver to get it back under control? I don't think they will. They'll be too intimidated by the far left. And I think that if Andy really stakes out that turf with his upcoming ad campaign, I think we could see a surprise.
And voters do see Republicans as law and order, Mike, but still, in the Denver?
Well, let's be clear. They're not going to have a ballot that tells you that you're a Democrat or a Republican. But I do feel that voters in Denver, Democrats in Denver, have been exceedingly suspicious of Republicans for a long time. My father's a Republican, so I'm suspicious of him, right? And, of course, of Dick. But, you know, Don Bain, going back now 32 years, as we were talking with Andy, it's ancient history, but he wanted to mothball the airport. Now, can you imagine him getting elected and that actually happening and where we'd be today? Now, I'm not saying Andy has extreme ideas like that, but Denver voters have just had that suspicion. As we've talked about, Denver voters have become so much more liberal over the last decade, and it is swimming upstream.
I don't know, Mike. I think the last couple of years, people might have thought that Don Bain was right and that we should have mothballed. Well, it's so poorly run that I think they might have thought Stapleton ran. It ran well.
Well,
so,
not
anyway.
as well as Denver International, but
Okay.
Well, that's an argument for another day.
The race just 6 weeks away, and yet 60% of voters are undecided, according to a new poll by a group of business leaders. What's more, only one candidate, former Chamber CEO Kelly Brough, came even close to 10%. Most of the candidates had less support than the margin of error for the poll. 4.9%. That's a pretty big margin of error for that poll, too, I think. But what does this say about the race, the candidates, both?
Again, it's timing. I mean, we're still in the depths of winter. And people have not focused on that. Though ballots will drop in, about 3 weeks, and then they'll have to pay attention to it. And so, having been involved in these races over the years, February is not a great month to get the voters' attention. They're just getting over January and thinking, God, I got another month of winter. And it is really hard to get their attention. We'll see what these TV campaigns do, because those will really have to drive voters to the polls. But it's, by and large, it's really a timing thing at this point.
Dick, what do you think about this poll?
It looked to me like it was a 7-way tie. I mean, when you throw in that big margin of error that you mentioned, Shaun, I mean, I wouldn't. In fact, I kind of laughed at the headlines that Kelly Brough was somehow leading the field. Well, not really. I mean, 60% undecided. I mean, no, I think it's anybody's game right now, and I think that I think Mike is right. This more than any other mayoral election, I think the ad campaigns will make a difference more than they have in the past. So.
Yeah. And so last week, a group supporting State Senator Chris Hansen for mayor put up the first TV ad in the race. And starting next week, a PAC supporting Kelly Brough will begin running an ad. Let's take a look at it. Denver is at a crossroads.
Crime has gone up. Denver's homeless population keeps growing.
We need to get Denver back on track. The only candidate with City Hall experience to turn things around, Kelly Brough. Picked by Mayor Hickenlooper as his chief of staff, Kelly Brough. Endorsed by Governor Bill Ritter, Kelly Brough. From plowing streets and picking up trash to tackling crime. Brough knows how to make our city work because she's done it before. The choice for mayor, it's not tough. It's Brough. Kelly Brough for mayor.
A little rhyming at the end there. You know, she's playing up her experience, her connection to Hickenlooper. She got Ritter in there. But voters clearly are not happy with the state of the city these days. So is she at risk of sounding too much like status quo?
Well, first of all, the ad did start yesterday. And two, it isn't an...
I thought it was starting this next week.
No, it started yesterday,
Thank you.
And it is an independent expenditure. So Dick and I'd like to think that means it is completely separate from the political campaign. And that's what happens when independent expenditures run ads. They develop their own message. It may not have been the message the campaign wanted to lead off with, but it does show her experience in working in government and having the capability of doing that. Again, you know, she's going to come up with her own ads soon enough, and they may tell a little different theme.
What do you think, Dick? Do you think that status quo is where people want the mayor to be?
No, I don't. In fact, 4 years ago, 8 years ago, that would have been a good ad. But I just think people are going to look at that ad and they're going to say, well, she's from the establishment. She's from the crowd that's been running the city for the last 4 or 8 years, and it's failing. And we're living in a city that has uncontrolled crime and hopelessness. And why would we want somebody from that crowd to continue to lead us? I think it's a mistake on that group.
All right, well, we'll see. Thanks for watching Left to Right Center. We will see you next time.